Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. I'm sorry Kiyomi-chan, but just hang in there, it will all be over soon, you're almost there, said Minato. If you are wondering, yes, this is the same Minato Namikaze, the Yellow Flash and Konoha 4th Hokage. You may wonder what's going on. Well, long story short, Minato and Kiyomi are having a baby. You may wonder why the room is private. The answer is simple. The Uchiha clan are against relationships between an Uchiha and non-Uchiha. However, Minato and Kiyomi have been seeing each other in private since they became genin. Okay, we're almost there, just one more please Kiyomi-san and this will all be over, said one of the doctors. You hear that? One more push Kiyomi-chan, come on, says Minato. Ah, yells Kiyomi as she gives one more push. The next thing you hear is a baby crying as loud as he can. You can see the tears of joy on Kiyomi's face as the doctors hand her their baby. Congrats Hokage-sama, Kiyomi-san, you have a healthy baby boy, says the same doctor from earlier as he looks at the happy family hugged together. Minato, look at him, he's so handsome, says Kiyomi as she kisses the baby's forehead. Yeah, he sure is, says Minato as he wipes tears from his eyes, being overwhelmed at the fact that he is a father now. He looks at his newborn son and notices his features. He has a head of black hair from his mother, however he notices his son has his bright blue eyes. This may cause some stir within the Uchiha clan when they see him. I don't want to have to take out some of my wife's own family to protect my child, Minato says. Don't worry Minato, I'm from a branch family, the elders, main house families, and the clan head doesn't pay attention to us. The only one who actually talks to us outside of the branch families would be Makoto. Makoto, huh? Is she still mad at me about the Kushina situation? No, she isn't mad at you anymore. I talked to her and explained everything. You see, back when Minato, Kiyomi and Kushina were genin, Minato saves Kushina from a group of Kumo shinobi sent to kidnap her, and let's just say Kushina didn't take the rejection from Minato too kindly. Flashback. Minato was out late at night training his taijutsu katas and speed when he noticed a trail of strands of red hair, and he immediately knew it belonged to Kushina. He follows the trail and sees Kushina tied up surrounded by 3 Kumo shinobi who Minato suspects are Chunin at the least and Haijonin the most. Minato decides that stealth is his best option of attack. So he takes to the trees and conceals his chakra as low as possible just in case they have a sensor in the group. Once he is close enough, he pulls out a kunai and makes his move. His first victim is the tallest one, bringing up the rear. The unexpected shinobi is walking thinking about the amount of money he is getting from this mission. He was so in his thoughts that he didn't recognize the mop of blonde hair sneaking up on him until it was too late when he felt his throat get slit and stabbed in his temple before the assailant was gone. All the 2 shinobi in the front heard was a thud and looked back to see their leader on the ground dead. Shit, we were followed, said one of the Kumo shinobi. Quick, back to back so whoever it is can't sneak up on us, said the other shinobi. They stand back to back and hear a whizzing sound and barely have any time to dodge the kunai. One shinobi managed to jump out of the way, however the other was not. As soon as he was about to jump, it was too late, the kunai was already embedded in his skull. Damn, that was my last kunai I had. I was hoping to take them both out at once. Minato thought as he looked at the last Kumo shinobi who was on the branch below him armed with 2 kunai looking around. Minato needed a plan to take out the last shinobi so he could grab Kushina, who was still walking ahead, not realizing what's going on. Minato notices a thin branch that looks easy to pull, so he takes it, pulls it back and lets it go as he falls down to the same level as the Kumo shinobi. His prey make a mistake that would cost him his life. He looked up to the sound of the branch snapping. All he knew next was a foot connecting to the side of his face, sending him flying into another tree with a sickening crunch sound as his skull hit the tree and his neck snapped. Minato, landing on the ground, watched as the last shinobi lifeless body hit the ground. He made his way to Kushina, who was still walking aimlessly ahead in the same direction. Kushina, Minato says. Kushina looks up at the sound of his voice, gives a weak smile, and before she can speak her legs give out and Minato rushes forward and catches her and unties the ropes, picks her up bridal style and leaps into the trees. Hey, what are you doing? Kushina says while trying to hide her blush as she looks up at Minato and notices how handsome he looks with the moon shining on him. I'm rescuing you. What does it look like I'm doing? You're hurt and can barely walk. This is the quickest way to get back to the leaf and have a doctor check you out, he says with a smile on his face. No, I mean, why are you saving me? Everyone thinks I'm an outsider and picks on me. During the academy, you never stood up for me, only stared at me with a look of pity and always looked away when I saw you staring. How did you even find me? She replies, I'm helping you because you are a leaf shinobi and we always stick together and help our comrades. I never stood up for you in the academy because I knew you could handle yourself against those bullies. I always stared at you because you were cool and I was hoping we could become friends one day, but you looked at me as if you wanted to hurt me as well, so I never bothered, and I found you because I seen the trail of red hair you left behind and I immediately knew it was yours. While he is talking, she is looking up at him with a slight blush on her face that he doesn't see due to him looking ahead leaping through the trees. Hey Minato. Ya Kushina wa. He was cut off by her lips meeting his eyes are wide while she stops and has a huge blush on her face. After a moment of silence due to him getting his brain functioning again and her looking away with a nuclear blush on her face. Minato speaks. Kushina, I am sorry, but I can't be with you if that's what you are hoping for. I'm sorry. At this she explodes. What do you mean you can't be with me? You were the only boy I've kissed and I love you, but you want to reject me? Are you serious? I'm sorry Kushina, but I have somebody else and we've been together ever since we became genin. I am sorry, but if I never met her I would be open to dating you or seeing where this goes, but for now all I can give you is friendship. Kushina, still mad, replies, whatever Minato, just take me to the damn hospital. After Minato takes her to the hospital, he heads home but stops at a training ground where he sees his girlfriend Kiyomi training her shuriken jutsu, and before she can start again she notices Minato, but the look on his face is a look of sadness and guilt. She asks what's wrong and he breaks down and tells her everything. She comforts him over his first 3 kills, and although she was originally mad at the kiss, it wasn't his fault and she couldn't blame Kushina since she didn't know. After Minato calms down, he thanks him with a kiss and goes home. The next day he is at the academy waiting for his team assignments when an enraged Makoto comes up to him and yells at him, accusing him of using Kushina to try and get in her pants, calls him a loser and a horrible person, and walks away leaving a stunned Minato and crowd. Flashback end. After that, Makoto became cold to Minato and had a deep hatred towards him even after Minato and Kushina made up. They even became friends. Actually, they were more like brother and sister. That's good. I was hoping our kids would be friends. She recently had a son a couple months back, right? Yes, she named him Sasuke, she replies. Well, congrats to her. We will have to. He is cut off by a loud roar. What the hell was that? A shinobi has busted through the doors he was guarding. Hokage-sama, this is horrible. It's the Kyuubi no Kitsune. What, how? Never mind, get all Jonin and Anbu on the front lines to fight. I want all Chunin and Genin to get the civilians to the bunker. After the civilians are safe, tell the Chunin to come to the battlefield except Kakashi. He is in charge of watching the Genin guarding the civilians. Hurry up. Hi. Kiyomi-chan, I know Minato, go, I'll be waiting. He kisses her and disappears in a yellow flash. Battlefield. Minato is standing on his face on the Hokage monument when the Kyuubi starts gathering red and purple chakra into a ball. Minato sees this and gets out a tri-pronged kunai going through hand signs. When he is finished, the Kyuubi launches his tailed beast bomb, but a barrier appears absorbing the attack, sending it far away into the forest. However, before Minato can breathe, a man appears behind him and tries to absorb Minato into some kind of vortex. However, Minato escapes and the man leaves to find him. Canon fight between Minato and Madara aka Obito, however they don't know it's Obito. Minato flashes back to the battlefield to face off against the Kyuubi. After going through hand seals, Minato yells out, summoning Jutsu Food Cart Destroyer. Out comes a giant reed toad named Gamabunta who lands on top of the 9 tails. Bunta, I need you to hold down the 9 tails while I get ready. I have a plan. Easier said than done, Minato, but I'll try. Minato, what's the plan? What are you doing? asked an elderly man holding a staff known as the professor of shinobi and the third Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi. I'm going to seal it away to save the village from any more destruction. I'll be back. Before Hiruzen can reply, Minato flashes away. Hospital Kiyomi room. Minato arrives at Kiyomi room to tell her his plan, and what he sees before him is heartbreaking. Kiyomi is dying while shielding her from the ki and demonic chakra in the air from the Kyuubi. She smiles weakly at Minato with tears in her eyes, knowing she won't live after tonight. No words are said as she already knows what Minato plans to do, and he begs him to come along to be with her family one last time. Minato grabs her as she holds on to their son and flashes away to start the sealing process. Battlefield. Minato arrives back on top of Gamabunta and asks him to hold him for a little while longer so he can gather enough chakra. Once he has enough chakra, he flashes himself, his family, Gamabunta and the Kyuubi away. After they land in another part of the forest, Minato sends Gamabunta back to his summons world and faces the Kyuubi. The Kyuubi, realizing he is free, gets ready to attack when golden chains made of chakra hold him in place while creating a barrier to keep anything from leaving or entering. Kushina, Minato and Kiyomi yell seeing her condition. She is battered and has bruises all over her body with some cuts on her arms while her clothes are torn up. Minato: I was attacked by a man in a mask claiming to be Madara Uchiha. He ambushed me and ripped out the Kyuubi from the seal. I know, Kushina, it's not your fault. He snuck up on you. He also fought me, but I managed to get a hit on him with my Rasengan and he retreated. Now I'm about to seal him into my son. I know it's wrong, but it's the only option. I can't reseal it into you as it would just break out again. This is the only way. Kushina smiles sadly, knowing he is right. Can I hold him, please? She asks weakly. Kiyomi smiles and hands her their son. What's his name? Kushina asks. His name is Naruto, they both reply. The Kyuubi roars as he fights against the chains, but they won't budge. Minato, seeing this, summons an altar and places Naruto on it. He begins going through hand seals to start his plan. Reaper Death Seal. Hiruzen arrives at the sealing area and recognizes those hand signs and tries to stop Minato from summoning the Shinigami, but it's of no use as he can't enter the barrier. He can only watch on as his successor and two of the best kunoichi sacrifice their lives to save the village. After Minato finishes the hand signs, a spectral of the Shinigami appears. Mortal, why have you summoned me to this world? The Shinigami asks. Shinigami, I would like to seal the Kyuubi into my son Naruto, Minato says. Very well, however, the cost of this sealing is your own soul, says the Shinigami as he begins to chant while he stabs and cuts open his stomach. After the chant is done, the Shinigami reaches out and his spectral-like hand goes through Minato as he winces from the pain. The hand then grabs hold of the Kyuubi, but for some reason the chains weaken enough and the Kyuubi lashes out at Naruto to kill him. However, Minato, Kiyomi and Kushina jump in front of the Kyuubi claw and are impaled by it. On the outside, Hiruzen can only watch in horror and sadness as all of this is happening when two Anbu appear behind him. Hokage-sama, the civilians are secure in the bunker with Genin on watch with Kakashi Hatake on standby, says one Anbu. Good, I want you and all available Chunin and Jonin Anbu to start looking for any and all casualties while you two stay with me. Hi Hokage-sama, they reply. Both Anbu leave, however both Jonin stay behind. In the barrier, Minato and Kiyomi have just finished saying their last words to Naruto. Canon speech just replace Kushina with Kiyomi. Meanwhile, Kushina says a few words of her own. Naruto, this is your Oba-chan. I wish we could have had more time to be together. You would be like the son I never had. I leave to you all the Uzumaki sealing items. It's all I have left in life. Something tells me with you being the son of Minato, you will be interested in Fuinjutsu. She pauses to cough, but blood comes out. I know how the life of a Jinchuriki is. It will be hard, but you can't let the hate and anger of the Biju take over. You must counter it by love and happiness. So please, no matter what happens, do not go down a dark path in life. I love you. I wish you the best in life. She finishes with tears coming down her face. Minato looks on, sad that neither will be allowed to live to raise his son, but trusts the Sandaime to look after him. He smiles as he says his finals word. Seal. The Kyuubi roars one last time as he is sealed inside Naruto. After the seal is complete, the Shinigami removes his hand from Minato while removing his soul. At the same time, Kushina and Kiyomi both fall to the ground on their last breath. The barrier drops and Hiruzen and the two Jonin with him come rushing in. Kiyomi, Kushina, hang in there. I have medical help on the way. It's no use, Hokage-sama. We're done here, it's time for us to move on. Kiyomi says, his name is Naruto. She says, motioning to her baby boy, I want you to give him Kushina last name of Uzumaki. I don't want him to be used as a weapon for the Uchiha clan if he awakens the Sharingan, and he can't take Minato last name due to Iwa being willing to do anything to kill him or his legacy. Wait until he is a Chunin or Jonin to tell him about us. Unless he awakens his Sharingan, you can tell him about me, but you must not tell him about his father until he is Chunin or Jonin, or when you deem him worthy of knowing. I left him all my notes on my taijutsu style. If he is like me, he won't be really good at the Uchiha style of taijutsu even with the Sharingan. She reaches in her robes and pulls out a scroll. This is for him from me. I want you to give this to him after you tell him about me. Minato has one as well, but it is sealed in your office with a blood seal, only able to be opened by Naruto. Please take care of him, Hiruzen. That's all I ask, please. I love you, Naruto. She kisses her son one last time before she takes her last breath. Hiruzen looks down in sadness with tears in his eyes. He looks over at Kushina and sees that she is no longer breathing but has a scroll in her hand and assumes it's for Naruto, so he takes it and puts it away. As that happens, the Jonin appear and help him with the bodies, looking down in sadness and hatred at the bodies of the Hokage and two of the most powerful kunoichi from the Leaf Village and the newly born Jinchuriki who they wish they could kill. Hiruzen, seeing the hatred in their eyes, can only sigh as he knows he would have to retake the mantle of Hokage to protect Naruto. These were some of the things being said by the civilian council. You may wonder why. Well, Hiruzen Sarutobi just announced to the council about Naruto being a Jinchuriki, and as you can see, things did not go so well. Having enough of the bickering and screeching of the civilian council, he lets out an enormous amount of ki, which causes everybody to be quiet and stare at him scared. Well, the civilian side of the council is scared. The shinobi side An's clan heads are smirking or openly laughing, except for two who have stoic looks on their faces, these two being none other than Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan, and Hiashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan. Naruto will not be killed, and that is final. If you kill him, then the Kyuubi will just be released again, and we don't have another seal master like Minato or Kushina around to seal it. That is when a man with pineapple hair and a lazy look on his face that makes him look like he is sleeping spoke up. Hokage-sama, not that I am against Naruto, but we still have Jiraiya as our final remaining seal master. Says Shikaku, head of the Nara clan. Yes, we do have Jiraiya, however, as great as he was at seals, something like sealing a tailed beast as powerful as the Kyuubi, at best he would be able to suppress it with another seal should it try to break out. Compared to Minato and Kushina, Jiraiya was an amateur in sealing despite him being a seal master. He hasn't mastered the Uzumaki level of sealing like Kushina has, and Minato was well on his way to mastering them before he perished. Hiruzen responded. Suddenly a man with bandages over his right eye, short shaggy dark brownish hair with a scar on his chin, speaks up. Hiruzen, what has happened to the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu scroll? If you would like, I can hold on to them for safekeeping, for you, and keep them out of the wrong hands, he says while barely hiding his hunger for knowledge. That is a question I cannot answer, Danzo, for Kushina was the only person who knew where they were and what would happen to them should she die. Hiruzen calmly replied to the now named Danzo, who had to hide his frustration at not being able to get his hands on something so powerful. Hiruzen, however, had a good idea where all the Uzumaki Fuinjutsu notes and scrolls were, and it might have something to do with the scroll he found in Kushina's hand. Getting over his anger while hiding it rather well, Danzo tries makes a suggestion. Very well, however, this brings up the question of the Jinchuriki. If you want, you may hand him over to me and I can give him the proper training and conditioning to use his powers, make him a powerful tool. He was cut off by Hiruzen. No Danzo, you will not be getting Naruto to turn him into a mindless weapon to use at your own disposal. Now with the passing of Minato, I will be taking over as Hokage once again starting now. He says there were no objections except from Danzo and the two elders, but he ignored them. Now the status of Naruto being a Jinchuriki is now a S-classed secret and nobody will speak on it. No one of his generation shall know about it, nor will any harm be done to the boy. Minato wants him to be seen as a normal boy and not the beast he contains. The punishment of revealing this is death. Do I make myself clear? He yells out the final part, adding ki to get his point across. Everybody nodded. However, the civilian council and elders have already begun plotting ways to harm the Jinchuriki or break him mentally to become a weapon for the village. Now onto the casualties and repairs we need to make for the village. He say while on the inside he is thinking, I'm too old for this shit. 4 years later. And stay out, demon, yelled a lady who looked to be in her mid-30s. That was what he has been called since he can talk and understand what people were saying. Why they called him this he didn't know and nobody would tell him. He had no friends in the orphanage except a girl with 2 buns in her head. However, she was adopted a little over a year ago, so he was alone now. He knew his name only because of an old man he liked to call his. Gigi always reminded him of his name and showed him kindness. This man was the 3rd Hokage and the only other person in the village to treat Naruto with respect and showed him love. Now, however, little Naruto is walking through the village late at night, hungry and tired. When he smells something lovely, he follows the scent and finds a small little restaurant called Ichiraku's. However, Naruto, having been treated bad by all adults, he sees, turns and walks away until he bumps into an older man with a chef hat on his head. The man looks down at Naruto and smiles sadly. He knows who Naruto is and who his parents were because they were close friends. Hey young man, I'm Tuki. Are you hungry? You look like you could use some food. He says as he introduces himself, but couldn't help but be angered by how frail Naruto is, so he offers some food. I would, but I don't have any money, mister. I'll be fine. I always go a week without eating food at the orphanage, sometimes too, so it'll be okay for a couple of days. Naruto responds in a small yet shy voice. Now Tuki was pissed. How dare those idiots at that orphanage treat Minato's son like that? Wait until Hokage-sama find out about this. He thought to himself. However, he cleared those thoughts away as he looked back at Naruto. Nonsense, come on. It's on the house. I couldn't charge you even if I wanted to. He says and grabs Naruto by the hand and leads him into his shop. When Naruto sits down, he is greeted by a girl maybe 5 to 6 years older than him. Hi, welcome to Ichiraku's. I'm Ayame. The girl says with a smile, holding her hand out. I am Naruto, he responds while tentatively taking her hand. Tuki sees this and smiles. He wished he could have adopted Naruto, but the council banned anybody from adopting him. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of Naruto's stomach growling. Laughing, he says, I'll get you some ramen. Naruto, just sit there. He goes and starts to prepare the ramen. Meanwhile, Ayame is talking to Naruto a lot and he seems to have gotten over his shyness and is laughing with her at some of the jokes they share. So Naruto, what is your dream for you when you get older? Ayame asks. I wanna be Hokage and maybe start a family with a girl I love. I don't want to marry anybody I don't love or have a lot of women. It's not really my style. He says, which is weird for a 4-year-old to say. Naruto, how do you know about love and marriage? She asks. Well, I couldn't get any kid books at the orphanage, so I could learn how to read, so I seen some orange book with a man and women on the cover of the book and started reading it. I didn't understand some of the workouts, but they sounded interesting to try out, I guess, because in the book the man and women were sweating and breathing hard after they were done, but I got uninterested when he started working out with 10 women at one time. Like, how can he do that? It's not possible. He says while Ayame is blushing up a storm at Naruto for reading a porno, but he didn't know. Meanwhile, Tuki was finished with the ramen for Naruto and had a tray with 3 large bowls on it. If he is like his parents, this won't even be enough to fill him. He thought as he remembered his best customers spending a fortune on ramen. However, he pauses when he hears Ayame ask Naruto what his dream was and couldn't help but cry, as those were the same words Minato said when he became a genin. However, he did almost burst out laughing as Naruto described the book he learned to read from. He might have to give Naruto the talk in a few years. Alright, 3 large bowls of miso ramen. Naruto on the house eat up. Tyuki says as he comes out the back with the tray of ramen bowls. Naruto is intoxicated by the smell and couldn't help but drool at the food in front of him. Itadakimasu, Naruto says, and after 5 minutes the 3 bowls are gone and he asks for more, causing Tyuki to laugh as he heads to the back to make more. After another 10 bowls, Naruto bids farewell with a sad look on his face and begins to walk out. However, a hand on his shoulders causes him to look back and he sees Tyuki smiling down at him. How about you stay here tonight and tomorrow morning we can go see the Hokage about your living arrangements? Naruto, not being used to such kindness, stares at him in shock and rushes to hug him, thanking him over and over. They close up shop and Naruto helps. They go through a door in the kitchen that led upstairs to their apartment. It was a decent-sized apartment with 3 bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen and living room. Ayame leads Naruto to the extra room where he will be sleeping and gives him one of her father's shirts so she can wash his clothes for him since it's all he has. The shirt was so big all you could see was Naruto's head, everything else was covered up. Naruto fell asleep that night with a smile on his face and had the best sleep he has ever had. Next morning Naruto wakes up and goes to the kitchen and sees Ayame making breakfast. She greets him as she gives him some food to eat before saying they are going to see the Hokage later so the shop will be opening late. After everyone eats they get ready to leave. However, when they open the door the Hokage is there with 2 Anbu behind him, one with gravity-defying hair in a dog mask and a taller one with brown hair. However, Naruto, being used to the feeling of hatred, can feel it coming from this certain Anbu in a monkey mask. Hokage-sama. Tyuki greets them with a bow. We were just about to come see you to talk about something important about Naruto. Yes, I was coming here to tell you the civilian council wanted you arrested. However, I know better than to believe anything they say, so let's go to my office. He replies. They got to his office and began to talk. So Tyuki, do you mind telling me why Naruto was living in your house now? Hiruzen asks but doesn't really care, but has to do it for the elders minus Danzo are in the room. Well, Hokage-sama, in all honesty Naruto does not live with us. He was staying there for the night since he doesn't have anywhere to live. As I told you earlier, we were on our way to speak to you. However, I believe it would be best if Naruto were to explain what happened. Tyuki replies. No, that boy has nothing to say during this meeting, we won't hear it, says the old lady who is one of the elder advisors named Kaharu. She lost one of her daughters and husband during the Kyuubi attack and holds a deep hatred towards Naruto and blames him. She didn't want Hiruzen to become Hokage because he would protect the boy she wanted to harm. Kaharu, behave yourself, let him speak. He has a right to speak as much as us during this meeting. After all, it is about him. Go on. Naruto tells us what happened. Replied the other elder advisor named Homura. He lost family as well to the beast when it suddenly attacked. However, he had his suspicions about the attack because as far as he knew, Minato just checked the seal the day before and seen Kushina's condition before the burial and noticed it looked like she was on a serious fight. He didn't blame Naruto. Hell, he felt sad for the boy knowing what he contained. He wasn't against Hiruzen becoming Hokage despite voting against him. He was only looking out for his friend teammate's health and believed the stress would kill him. Naruto, nodding at him, told them everything from how he was treated in the orphanage to him being kicked out. However, what he said next shocked everyone. I know about the law that prevents anybody from adopting me for being a demon and disgrace to the village. The lady at the orphanage made sure to tell me that every time somebody was adopted, especially when my only friend was adopted and taken away, but I will not say her name. I don't want her treated badly like I am. Is it possible for me to have my own place? I know how to clean since the orphanage had me cleaning up every day while they took all the kids out to play or walk around the village. He says, not noticing the shocked, angry looks on 4 people in the room and a look of smugness on the other. Very well, Naruto, I will find you a place to stay after I am done at the orphanage. However, I want you to stay with Ayame and Tyuki until then. Don't worry about opening up shop today, Tuki. I'll cover the amount you would make. How much exactly do you make on a Friday? Hiruzen asks. Tuki and Ayame are standing there in shock over the kindness, but he begins to run numbers in his head for about 2 to 3 minutes before he responds. We make about 1,500,000 ryo on a Friday due to a lot of ninjas returning to the village from missions and are always hungry and want something that can be made quickly. He replies. Hiruzen, knowing how ninjas eat, isn't shocked that much but wasn't expecting that much. However, he writes a check to Tuki and says to take it to his secretary so she can deposit it to his account. Tuki bows and leaves with Ayame, leaving Naruto behind to finish his meeting with the Hokage. Orphanage. Hiruzen walks up to the orphanage and sees the helper for the day at the orphanage, a girl named Kurenai Yuhi, a fresh chunin who has been helping at the orphanage on her off days ever since she was a genin. She sees him walking in and greets him. Hello Hokage-sama, may I ask why you are here today? She asks. Yes, I am here to see Naruto Uzumaki for the day. It's time for our usual lunchtime at Ichiraku's. He says, but it's a lie since Naruto just met them yesterday, while inwardly seeing how she would react to his name, knowing she lost his only remaining family during the Kyuubi attack when he went to the front lines to hold the beast off. She later found him dead under rubble during the cleanup, and it took a lot for her to get back into training. To his surprise, she took on a sad look and let out a heavy sigh. I was actually going to talk to you about that. He has been beaten a lot while staying here. I was walking around helping out 2 years ago when I seen the matriarch beating him a broken pipe, claiming it was his fault, but he told me not to say anything, and every time I came after that he would always stay away from me and say he doesn't want me to associate myself with a no-good demon brat. Although the Kyuubi heals him physically, it's the mental scars I'm worried about. But I haven't seen him all day. In fact, I hadn't seen him last night when I usually come check in to start my shift, and his room was empty. She replies with tears coming down her face. It's alright Kurenai, Naruto is safe. He is with Tuki and his daughter Ayame right now until I find him an apartment later on today due to the law surrounding him being adopted. However, I am going to need all the money I've sent here for him to be taken care of with. He says. I am sorry Hokage-sama, but for the past 4 years I've been working here, his money account was always empty. I assumed they would spend it on him, however I doubted that since all his clothes we poorly taken care of and looked like he was stitching them up to wear them more. Kurenai, are you telling me the orphanage has been stealing his money from him? He gets a nod back, but what gets him even more angry is when she says they always have new clothes and jewelry for themselves and clothes and toys for the kids minus Naruto. Kurenai, over the last 4 years I have sent over 400,000 ryo and you're telling me they haven't spent any on Naruto. He gets another nod. Thank you Kurenai, I will need you to watch the orphanage for 2 weeks while I look for new caretakers. I'll double the pay since you are a chunin and you will still get your chunin pay on top. Think of this as a B rank mission. He says. She is so shocked that all she can do is nod in agreement. He leaves to talk to the lady who is in charge of the orphanage along with her help that were all about to lose their job, however they didn't know it. What he sees disgusts him. The children at the orphanage are throwing food around, more specifically at the wall, but what's on the wall is what gets him mad. On the wall is a picture of Naruto that looks to be taken right after he was beaten, with the words demon on it, and somebody drew 9 tails behind him, most likely one of the adults who are sitting in a chair laughing about getting rid of the demon child while counting money. He walks up to them slowly before speaking. Good afternoon ladies, how are you today? He says with a fake smile, scaring them in the process. GG, good afternoon Hokage-sama, how may I help you? She replies while inwardly scared because she knows why he is there after looking at the clock. Oh, I'm just here for Naruto. It's time for our daily walk that we do. I figured I would take him to get some lunch, anything that gets me away from my paperwork. He says while this was true he wanted to get away from paperwork, he was still setting them up. I'm sure you are Hokage-sama, paperwork is indeed troublesome. Always having to make every single thing is accurate and on point, she says while laughing, not realizing she fell for his trap. So do you mind if I go up and get him now? I'm sure he is getting impatient. He says. No, that's okay, Hokage-sama, we can go grab him, she says as her and the rest of the helpers rush up to Naruto's room. What are we gonna do? He is here for the demon brat and we kicked him out last night, says the lady from the front desk. After a while one speaks up. I have an idea, he gets the demon brat and we keep our jobs, she says, then explains the plan and they all grin. After a while they all return with Naruto, and they start along with the plan. Everything was going good and fine until Hiruzen asked a question. Naruto, are you ready to head out and grab some lunch at a ramen stand that I'm sure you'll love? He says with a smile. Naruto responds in a tone too happy to be him, and that's when they fall into his trap. Hiruzen snaps his fingers and suddenly 4 Anbu appear and release the hanged orphanage worker who was a former ninja. Now did you really think I would fall for a simple henge? I know Naruto isn't here and I know you have been stealing his money that I've been sending for his care. Now Anbu, take them to the TI department. I want to know everything they've done to Naruto and how much money they have stolen. He turns to Kurenai and smiles at her. Kurenai, I will be sending some help for you over the next 2 weeks until I replace the workers and head of the orphanage. After that I have a request that has come into my office that I think you would like. Thank you, Hokage-sama, she says with a bow. Naruto was over at the Ichiraku's learning how to cook from both Ayame and Tsuki, making sure he knew the basics of cooking, at least since he will be living by himself from now on. Then there was a knock on the door and Tsuki opened it to see Hiruzen with a smile on his face. Hokage-sama, come in. Thank you, Tsuki. However, I only came to show Naruto his new apartment. I am sure you know which one I am talking about, he says, and Tsuki smirks at this. The building, although in the red light district, has been renovated by Minato along with 3 to 4 blocks surrounding it. Minato was in the process of cleaning up the slums of Konoha before he died, so the people there respected Minato the most. He added stores which created jobs, however some things never changed a lot with the brothels and crime rate. Tsuki saw the way the apartment was that Minato set up for Naruto, for when he moved out he didn't have to pay rent since Naruto technically owns the building. However, he can't collect any rent from people yet, he has to wait till he can publicly claim his inheritance. Naruto's apartment was set up with 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with one being connected to the master bedroom, a kitchen with everything included and a living room that already has couches in it and a coffee table. It's been 2 years since Naruto moved into his own apartment. He still talks to the Ichirakus and visits them almost every day, as well as his Gigi, as he likes to call the Hokage. However, right now we find young Naruto running for his life from an angry mob. He doesn't know why this happens. All he does is mind his own business, but the people still chase him and beat him whenever they can due to him constantly running. He is as fast as a high genin shinobi and he is only 6. That usually is enough to outrun a mob. However, these aren't just civilians, there are some chunin and jonin in the crowd throwing kunai and shuriken at him while civilians throw bottles and rocks at him. While Naruto is running sweaty and out of breath, he makes the mistake of running into an alley thinking he was at the corner of his street where the apartment is located. Nowhere to run now, you little demon. It's time to get you back for killing our loved ones and comrades, you little shit. Yay, you stupid fox, it's time to die. Dude, we're not supposed to speak about that, you know the law. So what? It's not like we will be punished. The Anbu who was supposed to watch over him hate him, so they will let us get our hits in and let him bleed out. Oh yeah, that is right. Let's begin the punishment of the fox. Naruto hearing this starts to think, why are they calling him the Kyuubi and saying he killed their loved ones? He hasn't killed anybody, he's 6 for Kami's sake. During his thoughts he doesn't see the weapons. Rocks and bottles being thrown at him. However, to the shock of everyone throwing things, he starts to dodge them like they are nothing. What people see are his eyes turn silver for a split second before returning back their blue color, thinking it's the Kyuubi gaining his powers back. The Jonin in the group throws more at Naruto, who stops dodging, getting a kunai to the shoulder, and see more coming towards him. He sees them coming, however he can't dodge them all and gets hit by 3 more kunai, 1 more to the chest and 2 in his stomach. He sees a shinobi throw 1 more kunai but notices him going through hand signs. Ninja art. Kunai shadow clone. The 1 kunai turns into 12 and they are coming at him, however they slow down and he moves out of the way. What everybody in the mob sees shocks them. His eyes turn red with one tomo in his right eye with two in his left eye. That's when things get worse. Do you see his eyes? Is he an Uchiha? No, it's a trick. The demon must have killed an Uchiha and stole his eyes. Let's kill him. They proceed to punch, kick and stab Naruto with the kunai they found. However, they are all stopped by an enormous amount of ki and the sound of chirping birds. They turn around and see the Hokage with Anbu Captain Dog next to him, a Raven and Weasel, both with the Sharingan activated. Anbu. Hiruzen barks out. "Hi Hokage-sama," they say together. "Kill them." Next thing they know is a complete massacre of civilians and ninja alike. After the massacre is over, Hiruzen looks at Dog and asks him. "Dog, who was supposed to be guarding Naruto tonight?" he asks. "It was Boar and Mouse, Hokage-sama. I want them found and sent to the T&I department to get everything out of them, then kill them." "Hi." Dog vanishes in a shunshin to find them and take them to the T&I department. As this is going on, Weasel and Raven have finished cleaning up and disposing of the bodies. However, they turn to look at Naruto, who is being helped up by a blonde girl that nobody realized was there. He looks at her and smiles while she looks away blushing. She says her name is Samui, which he tells her his name. However, she has to leave due to her parents looking for her. Once they find her, they see the Hokage and Anbu and bow to them. However, they sneer at Naruto, which causes him to flinch and look away. Before Samui leaves, she tells him to meet her in a certain clearing in the forest in 2 days if he wants to play. He smiles and thanks her as she leaves. He looks up at the Anbu and they gasp at his eyes and look at the Hokage for answers, who only said one word. "Shit." Hiruzen mutters, "Grab him and go back to my office." Hokage office. "Okay, I know all three of you have questions, so I'll start with Raven and Weasel. However, Naruto, what you are about to see and hear cannot be spoken of. Do you understand?" he says, getting a serious nod from Naruto. He sighs. Weasel and Raven, remove your masks. They do as told and reveal 2 black hair boys. However, one has 2 long marks on his face with 2 bangs framing his face and the rest of his hair tied in a ponytail going down his back. This is the current heir of the Uchiha clan, Itachi Uchiha. However, next to him is another guy with short spiky black hair with a smile on his face that gives warmth compared to the stoic look of Itachi. This man is Shisui Uchiha, best friend of Itachi and cousin of Kagami Uchiha. Now Naruto, I'm sure you have questions and I will answer them for you. Naruto nods and fires off all his questions. Why was I able to dodge all those kunai and shuriken? Why do the people of this village treat me like that? Why did they call me the Kyuubi? And where was my damn Anbu guard? Naruto, the reason you were able to dodge those shuriken and kunai is because you have unlocked a dojutsu belonging to the Uchiha clan from your mother. He says, getting a gasp from all 3 occupants in the room. Now, before you get mad at why you were not raised by the Uchiha clan, is simple. 6 years ago on your birthday, the Kyuubi attacked the village. Nobody knows why though. However, it was up to Minato, who you know was the 4th Hokage, to stop the beast, but it was only by sealing it away, and he needed a newborn baby, and seeing as how you were the only baby born, he had no choice but to use you for the sealing process, thus making you a Jinchuriki, or power of human sacrifice. Now this does not make you the Kyuubi itself, only the container. Now, as to why you were not raised by the Uchiha clan is because the Uchiha clan head and elders would have tried to break you mentally and use you as a weapon, and I know that Minato did not want you to be used as a weapon but seen as a hero and live a normal life. However, I messed up by revealing your Jinchuriki status to the council. However, I had no choice in the matter, as the Jonin who were with me at the time already told the elders and some of his ninja friends what happened. I did make it as ranked law to not speak of it or harm you in any way to protect you. However, it seems nobody took me seriously, which is resulting in deaths of civilians and shinobi alike. He explains. As for the Anbu guards that were supposed to watch you, apparently hated you for holding the Kyuubi as well and left their post and let you be caught and beaten, nearly being killed. However, I had dog track them down, sent to the T&I department. Naruto nods at that, still getting over the fact that the Kyuubi is sealed in his gut. However, he realized something. Hey Gigi, you never answered my question about how I was able to dodge all those kunai and shuriken. Before Hiruzen could speak, Shisui spoke up for. He did answer your question. It is due to your Sharingan everything slows down for you, allowing you to dodge and anticipate and predict your opponent's movements. He replies. Then Itachi spoke up. What Shisui says is true, however you are a special case. Most people when they unlock the Sharingan only have one tomo in each eye, however you have one in your right eye but two tomos in your right eye. He explains. Yes, I understand that. I'm talking about before the Sharingan unlocked. I was just standing there waiting for the kunai and shuriken to hit me, but I felt hot and my body started to dodge on its own like I had no control over my movements. I'm sorry Naruto, but that we cannot explain as we have never heard of that happening before. Hiruzen says, getting nods from Itachi and Shisui. Okay, I doubt it would happen again. So who was my mother? You mentioned she was an Uchiha but never said her name. He sighs as he knows this will cause a problem. Your mother's name was Kiyomi Uchiha. He says, getting a wide-eyed look from Itachi and Shisui. What? Shisui yells as his Sharingan flared to life. Yes, it is true Shisui, he is your sister's son. The reason I didn't tell you is because despite you both being half-brother and sister, she was moved to the branch family because she refused to marry Fugaku because she met Naruto's father, and despite him not being a part of the Uchiha clan, which is frowned upon, she didn't want to marry or have kids with anybody but him, so it was either be banished to the branch family and become one of the most hated Uchiha or be in a loveless marriage and pop out babies whenever the clan head wanted. She obviously chose to become hated rather than marry Fugaku. After that she kept seeing Naruto's father, and a few years later she became pregnant, and the day that was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life was turned upside down as she died due to the Kyuubi toxic chakra and Ki mixed with the stress her body went through during childbirth. She was shielding you from the chakra and Ki but was killing herself in the process to protect you. I'm sorry Shisui, but I can't allow you to have custody over Naruto, but I can give you a long-term rank training mission until he starts the ninja academy in 2 years. He replies with a smirk. Shisui looked back with a smirk of his own, catching on to what he is implying. Of course Hokage-sama, but just to be sure this will not interfere with me and Itachi's current S-ranked mission, will it? He says. Hiruzen tells him it will not. However, Naruto has a couple questions. Hang on Gigi. I have 2 questions. Number 1, what will he be teaching me? He asks with a smile on his face. That will be up to Shisui, however you can sort that out when you guys see me next week to iron out the details. Now what was your second question? He asks, and he was not ready for it. I didn't know you read those orange books too. They must be really popular. He said, pointing to the orange book that fell on the floor from his robe. Hiruzen had just stood there in shock and was curious as well. Naruto, where did you read this book at? He asks, hoping Kakashi didn't give one to him. Oh, those were the only books I was able to find and read at the orphanage. Somehow when I wanted to read, all the kid books would be missing. So I found those and taught myself how to read. He replies innocently. Okay Naruto, just don't read them anymore. Okay Gigi, but I have another question. What's a and why would a guy want to pound it hard and fast? He asked innocently. The result of the question was 3 men falling to the ground, having no choice but to give him the talk now. After a long and embarrassing talk with Itachi, Shisui and his Gigi, Naruto went home and went to sleep. 2 days later, Naruto is in the forest around the village looking for the girl Samui. He finds her sitting by a river and they play tag, hide and seek, and Naruto has to save her from invisible ninjas, promising to play again. They play some more throughout the week and even bought a yin and yang necklace with each other's name on the back. Samui has the yin symbol but with Naruto's name on it, while Naruto has the yang symbol with Samui's name on the back. They even went as far as to be each other's first kiss, which had them both blushing up a storm and sit in awkward silence, unaware of the blank masked Anbu that had been watching them, that left and reported to his master, who told Samui's father, and the next day she was told Naruto had been killed by a rogue ninja and they were moving to Kumo. After that day, Samui never showed any emotion towards anybody but still wore the necklace she had with Naruto. A couple days later, Naruto is in the Hokage's office. He was down these past couple of days not seeing Samui. He still wore the necklace but kept it tucked in so nobody would see it. Naruto, it's good to see you now. All we need is for Shisui to arrive. No sooner than he said that did Shisui appear via Shunshin. Now Shisui, since you are here, the details of this mission are simple. You are to train Naruto as much as possible for the next 2 years until he starts the academy, because I fear that the teachers will try to sabotage him and teach him wrong. He says. Hi Hokage-sama. Shisui replies. Now Naruto, this scroll is from your mother. It has her taijutsu style she used because she was no good at the Uchiha style. Shisui laughs at this because he remembers his sister when he was younger watching her struggle with the Uchiha interpreter fist. Anyway, she left this for you along with her ninjutsu she created. Handing Naruto a scroll. Thank Gigi, but can I ask a question? Getting a nod, he continues. I've seen some shinobi putting stuff in scrolls and making it disappear into the scroll. How did they do that? He asked out of curiosity. He is just like Minato. It's a good thing both Minato and Kushina left their notes behind on Fuinjutsu. Hiruzen thought to himself, holding back his tears. That Naruto is called Fuinjutsu. It is an extremely hard skill and there has only been 4 sealing masters in Konoha history. We only have 1 left, but he is out of the village. However, I do have some books on Fuinjutsu if you would like them to study. He gets a eager nod from the boy and chuckles, handing him a book on Fuinjutsu. Now you both are dismissed. I expect good results from this training. Now you are dismissed. They both leave. Now Hiruzen is sitting there looking at his stacks of paperwork and is about to get started when his secretary walks in with a cart with 3 more stacks of paperwork, causing him to cry anime tears, yelling at the picture of Minato. How did you do it? Causing his secretary to walk out with a sweat drop. In the training field, Shisui is sitting with Naruto going over what he will teach him. Okay Naruto, first things first, I'm going to teach you how to unlock your chakra. After that we will be working on your taijutsu, ninjutsu, shuriken jutsu and genjutsu. I'll leave the fuinjutsu to you since I know nothing about it. Finally we will work on upgrading your sharingan to its mature state. It becomes mature when you have 3 tomo in each eye like I do. As he turns on his sharingan. Now I want you to sit in a lotus position and try to unlock your chakra. You've only unlocked a small amount due to the sharingan activating, however it isn't completely unlocked. Try to remember what you felt in your eyes when the sharingan activated and pull it to the surface, you understand? He gets a nod from Naruto and lets him begin. After about 3 hours, Shisui was about to call it quits for the day, however he felt something coming from Naruto. Inside Naruto's mind. He was trying to search for his chakra when he wound up in a sewer-looking area with pipes leading in 2 different directions. He feels hated coming from his left, so he goes the opposite way to his chakra, and instead of finding a small amount he sees quite a lot and pulls it, and all of a sudden he was fading from his mindscape. Outside his mind, Shisui is walking to Naruto when all of a sudden chakra starts to flow from him and it hits a certain point before stopping. Naruto opens his eyes to see Shisui staring at him with a smile on his face, but inwardly he is freaking out. Geez, he already has as much chakra as a mid-chunin. I need to teach him chakra control ASAP. He thought before he could speak. Naruto said something first. Shisui, I thought we were here alone. Getting a confused look from Shisui. What do you mean we are alone? He says. Naruto only looks over the shoulder of Shisui and nods his head slightly. Shisui, understanding, asks, how many? Naruto holds up one finger. Shisui getting the hint. Shunshin in front of the person in the trees, which happens to be a blank masked Anbu with, nay, written on it before the Anbu can react. Shisui puts his tanto through his chest, killing him, but takes the mask for evidence. He teleports in front of Naruto and tells him they're going to the Hokage's office. They get there to see Hiruzen reading his orange book while giggling perversely with blood coming out of his nose. Naruto gets an idea. He walks slowly behind him, looks over his shoulder and yells, "Hey Arrow Gigi," causing the professor of shinobi to jump up and land of his desk in a battle stance with a serious look on his face. However, he feels a hit to his pride as he sees Naruto and Shisui laughing on the floor with tears in their eyes. He sighs, gets off his desk, clears his throat and asks what they need, trying to save himself from further embarrassment. We have a problem, Hokage-sama, Shisui says with a serious voice, causing Hiruzen to go into what Naruto calls Hokage mode. What problem? He asks in a serious voice. All Shisui does is pull out the mask of the Anbu he killed. Hiruzen gets pissed and Naruto asks what that mask means and they tell them about a secret Anbu division that was around during the Third Shinobi War who were trained as emotionless shinobi who would go out and take the most dangerous missions and would complete them no questions asked. Who would do such a thing to their own shinobi? Taking away is not right and makes them basically mindless drones or better yet monsters who could possibly turn on their own comrades. Naruto says angrily as his Sharingan turns on but quickly turns off before anybody can notice. Hiruzen answered this question. His name is Danzo and he is cold and ruthless. He claims all he does is for the good of the village but in reality it's for himself. He wants to be Hokage and tried to kill me once but I couldn't put it on him due to him being able to his evidence as if it never happened. This is what he looks like. Hiruzen shows him a picture of Danzo. Naruto seeing him gains a wide-eyed look on his face. I've seen him at the orphanage a lot. He would come in and hand the ladies at the desk a lot of money and he would leave with 5 kids. He would come by once every 3 months and do the same thing. He would look at me with a look of want in his eye. So on top of him being a pedophile he also is a jealous lunatic war lover. Shisui and Hiruzen both sweat drop at his last sentence of Naruto calling Danzo a pedophile. Naruto, why didn't you say something sooner to me about this? Naruto just gives him a look. Seriously, I'm the most hated person in the village except that purple-haired lady with the trench coat. Who would believe me instead of you? He says. Hiruzen nods at this. Nobody would believe a child about this, let alone the demon brat. He sighs and says he will deal with Danzo in due time. It's been 6 months since Naruto has been training with Shisui and has been working on his chakra control and Fuinjutsu. So far Naruto knows leaf balancing. He can do that with multiple leaves, Senbon balancing, tree walking and water walking. Now he is trying to combine the leaf and tree walking exercise. He does this because he and Shisui estimated by the time he graduated he could have as much chakra as an elite Jonin or Anbu, so due to his reserves constantly growing. Dang, Naruto mumbles under his breath as the leaves fall off his body again while walking up the tree. Shisui seeing this just chuckles slightly. He's upset that he can't get the leaves to stick to his body while tree walking, while most Chunin wouldn't even try this. He will be a splendid ninja. He thought. He then clapped his hands, getting Naruto's attention. Okay Naruto, it's been 6 months and you have low Chunin control over your chakra, which is good since you have mid Chunin reserves. However, due to the seal your reserves will start growing faster the harder you train. Now I want to know how far along you've come in your Fuinjutsu. He asks. Oh, that it's really easy. I'm already at level 3 so I can make storage scrolls, explosive tags, security tags, and my personal favorite, a tag that shoots out paint and feathers at anybody who activates it. He proudly says, getting a sweat drop from Shisui. Seriously, the hardest area to study in ninja training, and he makes a pranking seal as if it was nothing. I know he would be good but not this good so fast, sheesh. Okay, I'm not going to ask about that last one. Getting a sheepish grin from Naruto. Now we will begin working on your taijutsu with and without the Sharingan so you can get used to fighting with and without it. You never want to become too reliant on your eyes. Now let's begin. He says with an evil grin, scaring Naruto, who barely dodged the punch. You have good reflexes, that's good. Now get out the taijutsu scroll your mother left behind for you. I can tell by the way your body moves the Uchiha style would not fit you. It's all about anticipation and you don't need to be very fast to use it since it relies on the Sharingan. He explains, getting a nod in return from Naruto, who gets out the scroll of the taijutsu style she uses. Kame style was written on the scroll. It was about endurance and strength. However, Naruto would have to make some minor adjustments to adapt to it so he would be able to use it along with his speed without losing the strength, but it was perfect for him since he could use it with and without the Sharingan. 3 months later. The past 3 months could be described as hell or fun depending on who you are. For Naruto it was torture, but if asked Shisui, life couldn't have been better. He introduced Naruto into a training regime that would leave him battered and bruised at the end of the day. In the last 3 months his taijutsu reached academy level, which is ahead of most kids going to the ninja academy except for some clan heirs. Speaking of clan heirs, he met some of them. Shikamaru and Choji they hit it off. Naruto and Shikamaru would play shogi sometimes or sometimes just lay down and watch the clouds, and Naruto found out how relaxing it can be and made it a habit to watch the clouds after a training session if it ended early. Choji on the other hand was more interested in eating all the time, having challenged Naruto to multiple ramen eating contests that would put grown men to shame. Naruto leads the series 11-10. Naruto met some more as well, and he met Hinata Hyuga, who was shy and had confidence issues. Kiba Inuzuka, who was brash and kind of rubbed Naruto the wrong way, but he was a good guy. He met Shino, who he thought was weird at first but learned that his clan is really antisocial and only speak when needed. He also found out about the insects and how the Aburame clan used them to Naruto, fascinated by this. He met Ino Yamanaka, who Naruto wasn't really a fan of. She was always trying to boss somebody around and yelling about something. It was annoying, but her blonde hair reminded him of his first and only best friend Samui, who he hasn't seen in a long time and always gets sad thinking about her. Then he met Sakura Haruno, a civilian from a merchant family. He recognizes her pink hair from an older lady who would always lead the mobs when they would chase him and beat him before he started training and got his new apartment. Last but not least, he sort of met Sasuke Uchiha, who he later found out from Shisui was Itachi's younger brother. He stumbled upon Sasuke watching him practice a jutsu he could never get right and would see his father walk away when he couldn't perfect it. He asked Shisui about this and explained to him that it is the Uchiha rite of passage. After you master the jutsu, you can wear the Uchiha crest on your clothes. Naruto then understood why his father was acting like that. But back to the training. Speed up Naruto focus, Shisui says as he sends punches and kicks at Naruto. He is only moving at a high genin speed while sparring with Naruto. He didn't let Naruto use his Sharingan this time around, wanting him to work on his natural reflexes while fighting. Naruto was doing pretty well until Shisui decided to speed up to mid-chunin, and that's when things got bad for Naruto. Shisui was relentless in his assault against Naruto, breaking through his defenses, but as this was going on he saw Naruto's body start to give of heat and pressure like ki, but it was calm and relaxing. Next thing Shisui knew, Naruto was dodging his attacks like it was nothing, and Shisui's Sharingan couldn't predict his dodge pattern anymore. When he looked at Naruto, he seen his eyes were silver, but he felt very little chakra being used. After one last strike to the face, all Naruto did was tilt his head to the side, and the unexpected Shisui was hit in the stomach by Naruto, causing him to cough up spit. When he regained his composure, he saw Naruto passed out on the ground. His breathing was heavy, but he was alive. He picked Naruto up and Sunshine to the Hokage's office. Shisui arrived in the Hokage's office seeing him finishing up some paperwork. However, when he saw Naruto he started to panic, but Shisui just held his hands up and said he was fine. Shisui report. What happened? He asks serious. I honestly have no clue. I mean, I know what happened, but I can't really explain it. He says with a sigh. He then explains what happened during training with Naruto. The Hokage just sits there thinking about this. Shisui, I want you to take it easy on Naruto for now, only train him using high genin low chunin speed and strength. Clearly whatever happens to him isn't normal and causes stress to his body, as we can see. However, how is his training going? He gets a smile in return. Well, for the first 6 months I trained him on chakra control since he has mid-chunin reserves already. Getting a wide-eyed look from the Hokage, he continues. I've taught him leaf balancing, Senbon balancing, tree walking and water walking. Currently he is trying to combine tree walking with leaf balancing. It's not going good for him, but he will get it. His Fuinjutsu really impressed me since he does it on his own. He's already at level 3 and makes his own storage scrolls, explosive tags, security tags, and he made a pranking seal that explodes in paint and feathers. He said with a laugh, causing Hiruzen to laugh as well. His taijutsu has come along great the past 3 months. We started working on it. His mom was right to leave him that taijutsu style. He is a natural at it. I would say he is about academy level, borderline low genin right now. I would say he would be at high genin by the time we are done training. He says with a proud smile. Good, and I assume you haven't taught him any ninjutsu yet because you are working on conditioning his body and chakra control right now. He gets a nod in return. Good, now on to other matters. Any progression on the S-rank mission? All I know so far as well as Itachi is they just walk around ready to snap at anything. That's why I keep Naruto away from them, because I know they would take their anger out on him. He says with a sigh. Alright, continue to train Naruto, you have only just over a year left. Make your sister proud, Shisui. Dismissed. Shisui picks up Naruto and takes him home before leaving himself. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto wakes in the same sewer as last time, but this time he follows the pipes with red chakra filled with hate and malice. He walks until he sees a giant cage with a piece of paper with word seal on it and notices the large fox with 9 tails behind it. He walks close to the cage but has to jump back to avoid a claw that lashed out at him. However, what causes him to fall on his face is the fox is asleep with drool coming out of its mouth. He takes a deep breath and yells, "Oi fox, wake up, you're drooling." This causes the fox to jump up looking around, and when he finally fully wakes up he notices Naruto standing there. Huh, what? Oh, it's you, what's up? It says, causing Naruto to sweat drop. What no evil monologue about how you're the all-powerful Kyuubi no Kitsune. No threats to rip my guts out or eat me. Threaten to break out? He asks. No, it's too much work and a waste of words, besides I knew you wouldn't pay attention to it anyway. So why are you here? I was training and passed out due to exhaustion and woke up here. So I have some questions for you if I may. He gets a nod from the fox. Okay, why did you attack the Leaf Village? Why is my mind a sewer? Are there more like you, and what's your name? You have to have one, right? The Kyuubi is there in shock because nobody has ever bothered to learn its name. However, it responds. I didn't attack the Leaf Village on my own. Well, I was ripped out of my previous container Kushina Uzumaki by a man who claimed to be Madara Uchiha. However, I knew he wasn't him because I've been under Madara Genjutsu before, when he used to attack the first Hokage before I was sealed into my first host Mito Uzumaki, making her the second Jinchuriki ever, only after my creator. After Mito sealed me, the first Hokage decided to capture my brothers and sisters, the other 8-tailed beasts. We range from 1 tail being the weakest to me the 9 tails the strongest of them all. After Hashirama captured them, he gave them away like useless items to the other villages to create peace, but all he did was gave them ideas to create Jinchuriki and turn them into weapons for war. There have been 3 major shinobi wars already and I've seen them all. Now the reason for your mindscape looking like this is because of your childhood before you met your uncle and got your own place to live. However, if you notice it isn't as bad as it should be, that's because of the fond memories you have of the walks with the old monkey you call your Gigi, the moments you spend with the Ichirakus, the time you played with the bun-haired girl, and then my personal favorite, the little blonde girl you met before she disappeared. That is why your mind looks like this. However, it is up to you to change it. Now for your last question. Yes, I do have a name, however I will not be telling you because you are not worthy to know it yet. Once you get strong enough I will tell you my name, however I have not deemed you ready yet. It says, getting a nod of understanding from Naruto. You know, you're a lot different from the typical Uchiha. They are usually walking around like the sun shines out of there and walk around like they have sticks shoved up there. Yeah, I know, the only person I know from the Uchiha clan that doesn't act like that is Shisui. Other than that, they all act like that. Even Itachi, who he says is a good person, walks around like that. However, I've been noticing some tension coming from the Uchiha clan lately. I can sense the negative emotions coming from them. Why is that? Ah, so you've noticed that would be my doing. I wanted to give you something like an edge, so I gave you my ability to sense negative emotions on top of the regular sensor abilities you had. I've sort of enhanced them so your sensory abilities can be as good as Mito Uzumaki if you train them. Now I believe it is time for you to wake up soon, but I'll give you one more question. Is there any way to let you out? I mean, I know I can remove the seal, but that would kill me. Is there any other way, because from what you told me you don't deserve to be sealed away. The Yondaime used the Reaper Death Seal to seal me away. He is such an idiot. He could have just used the Uzumaki-tailed beast sealing ritual and he would still be alive, but I guess he never bothered to learn it. Shame, my old was too weak and only had enough chakra to summon those chains of hers. Now the only way I know to counter is to summon Kami. However, you need to be a level 10 seal master by Konoha standards, and it requires you to have Jonin to cage level chakra reserves. However, you only have to worry about the sealing level part. Because of my chakra, I can give you some to make up for the chakra you need, so you're at a level 4 already after 9 months. Yes, I know you lied to your uncle about that, but I understand why now. If you keep studying at the pace you are, you may reach level 10 by your second year in that ninja academy. Now go, it is time for you to wake up and start training. Naruto nods and fades from his mindscape. Good kid, I can tell he will do great things in life. Naruto woke up and looked at his clock. It was almost 7 in the morning. The fox was right. He needed to meet Shisui at the Hokage office for breakfast before training. He gets washed up and dressed and grabs his storage seal with his training equipment and leaves for the Hokage office. Naruto reaches the office and the secretary named Mina smiles at him and lets him in. He likes Mina. She was always nice to him and gave him candy sometimes. Naruto walks into the office and sees the Hokage Itachi, Shisui and the 3 elders, the pedophile Danzo as he likes to call him, the saggy tits old hag Kaharu and the cool old man Homura. He greets them. Good morning Hokage Gigi, Itachi, Shisui, pedophile Danzo, saggy tits and cool old man. Causing multiple reactions, Homura, Shisui and Hiruzen has to bite their lip to not laugh, but you can hear a slight snicker coming from them. Itachi had his normal Uchiha stoic look, but if you look close his mouth twitched upward a little bit. Kaharu is seething and tries to attack him, but an Anbu in a dog mask grabbed her. However, the most shocking was Danzo, who was supposed to be a master at hiding his emotions and was visibly seething at being called a pedophile. Naruto, you should show more respect to Danzo and Kaharu. They are elders of the village and should be treated as such. Hiruzen said in a false scolding tone. Everybody but Homura and Shisui believed, but to their shock Naruto wasn't even paying attention. He was reading the Hokage's orange book. When he looked up he saw everybody staring at him, so what he did next nobody expected. Did you say something? He says innocently. The Hokage drops his head on his desk. Shisui openly starts laughing. Itachi as well. Itachi. The 3 elders' eye twitch in annoyance at having another Kakashi possibly, and a certain dog-masked Anbu sneezed, causing everyone to look at him. Okay, you all are dismissed. We can finish this meeting at a later date. Everyone leaves to go their separate ways. However, Shisui comes back to have breakfast and start training. Naruto's sensor abilities go off when somebody else enters the room and is masking their presence like the Anbu, but he can still sense them. Hokage-sama, how many guards do you have in your room? He asks quietly, shocking Hiruzen because he only calls him this when it's a serious matter. I have 3. Why? He asks. Instead of answering, Naruto grabs a piece of paper and writes on it, bookshelf closest to your desk on the left. Another person is there. Hiruzen reads this and signals the cheetah-masked Anbu to get the intruder, and it's a blank mask Anbu with, nay, on it. He knocks him out and Hiruzen orders for him to go to the TI, but Naruto speaks up. It's a waste of time to send him there. Gigi, look at his tongue. He has a seal on it which I'm guessing prevents him from talking. Making Hiruzen sigh and just had him killed. Naruto, how did you know he was there? Shisui asks. Hiruzen nods. Did you guys forget I'm a censor? He asks with a deadpan voice, and they smack their head with their hands. Speaking of censors, I talked to the 9 Tails and he gave me his negative emotion sensing abilities as well as the reason for attacking the village. All Hiruzen says is, explain now, in his Hokage voice. So Naruto explains everything except the releasing him part. To say everybody was shocked was an understatement. Now I do agree with him about Hashirama being a fool, and no, before you ask, this isn't the typical Uchiha and Senju hatred. This is just facts from me knowing the story. He was a fool and a monster more than the tailed beasts are made out to be. He knew Madara was controlling the Kyuubi, but still, even after his control was released, he held him down with his Mokudan abilities so Mito can seal it in herself. Then she had the nerve to tell it to behave. Same goes for Kushina, but I can't really blame her since she was told Mito's feelings on the Kyuubi. They say treat a Jinchuriki with love, yet they treat the best like crap. Hashirama was a monster for hunting them down while they haven't done anything and just gave them away. He knew what the villages would use them for, but he let his naiveness take over and did it anyway. The blame for these wars and hatred between the villages can be blamed on him as well. After that they are in silence until Shisui spoke up again and said they had to get training, leaving Hiruzen to his thoughts. Training field. Okay Naruto, we have a year and 3 months left before you begin the academy, so we are going to start training you at low mid chunin level. He pulls out a set of weights that weigh about 15 pounds each. Put these on. These will help with your body conditioning as well as your speed. I got these from a Konoha taijutsu specialist. I hope you never have to meet him yet. Anyway, we are going to continue to work on your taijutsu and chakra control. However, we will be working on maturing your Sharingan. You still have 1 tomo in your right eye and 2 in your left, but that is because I trained you to not rely on them. Now we will work on them until they mature. I can feel you are almost at 2 tomo in each eye, so you might get that today after the training we go through. We will also be working on your ninjutsu, and if your Sharingan matures before time is up, I can teach you some Sharingan genjutsu. He explains, getting a nod from Naruto, and pulls out a slip of paper. This is chakra paper to tell you your natural element for ninjutsu. If it cuts, it's wind. If it burns, it's fire. If it gets soggy, then it's water. If it crumbles, it's earth. And if it crinkles, it's lightning. Now channel some chakra through the paper so we can get started. Naruto does, and both are shocked. The paper cuts into 4 pieces, however one is shredded to tiny pieces, another crinkles so much that it is a small ball, but you can see currents flowing if of it. The next piece just turns into water like it came out of the air, and the last one burned, but the color of the fire was blue instead of the normal color. They stand there in shock at what happens. They look at each other and can only say one thing. After getting over the shock of the results, Shisui gains a psychotic look on his face. Now Naruto, the real training begins. First things first, I will be teaching you the substitution jutsu, the Henjan clone jutsu. However, we may have to use a different clone because of how dense your chakra is due to the Kyuubi chakra leaking into your system, so instead of a regular clone you will use the shadow clones. He says, but I want you to practice hand signs before anything. I'll show you them. After he shows Naruto the hand signs, he tells him to practice them for 3 hours until he can do them without looking at his hands. He was expecting Naruto to take the full 3 hours to do them, however he had them down in an hour and used the remaining 2 hours to focus on his speed. He got his hand sign speed to a low genin level, which was good for him at his age. Okay Naruto, it's time to practice the jutsus I told you about. Now first the substitution jutsu. After 2 hours of practice, Naruto got the henge and substitution jutsu down. However, due to his dense chakra, his henge was solid and even came up with ideas for this jutsu with a evil gleam in his eyes, which actually scared Shisui, but Naruto promised not to use it on him. Now for the shadow clone jutsu. The difference between these clones and the regular clones are these ones are solid and can move, however it takes just one punch to defeat them. The regular clones are basically a form of genjutsu. You can just wave your hand through them and it will disappear. Now let's get started on the shadow clone jutsu. He demonstrated the hand signs to Naruto and told him to practice. He was in for a shock when it took Naruto only 30 minutes to get the jutsu down. Naruto, it's been 5 hours, so go have lunch and meet me back here at 2 o'clock. Shisui says. Naruto hurried over to his favorite ramen stand where he sees Choji and Shikamaru eating. Choji, Shikamaru, how's it going guys? It's going good Naruto, I can eat food and take a nap here without my mom yelling and nagging me like this at home. Shikamaru replies while muttering troublesome mothers, getting a laugh from Naruto. Choji, what about you, anything new? Naruto asks. No, not really, I've just been hanging out with Shikamaru. Choji said. You guys have been hiding from Ino, haven't you? He asks. Choji replies. No, we invited her, but she and her mother are hanging out with Sakura and her mother today. I see. Well, I'm hungry. Hey Ayame, hey old man Tuki, can I get 5 bowls of miso ramen with extra toppings? He asks. Sure thing Naruto, coming right up. Tyuki replies as Ayame finishes taking his order. However, Tyuki goes to make the food as Ayame is running the register today, so she stays back but goes around the counter to give little brother figure a big hug. So Naruto, how've you been? We haven't really been seeing you around as much as usual. Nothing much, Ayame, I've just been hanging out looking at the clouds and reading some books. He replies only to get hit in the head with a ladle, wondering where it came from. He looks at Ayame, who has a sickly sweet smile on her face that promises pain. But for some reason he can see the death god behind her. Naruto, you haven't been reading those orange books again, have you? She asks. Leaning into his face, he shakes his head frantically, looking for Choji and Shikamaru, who seem to have disappeared from the ramen shop. No, I'm not, I swear it's a book on the previous Hokages and some minor thing I should learn at the academy, I swear. He replies, scared out of his mind right now. Ayame stares at him for some more time. Be backing off. Okay, she says like nothing happened. Tyuki comes out the back with his ramen, seeing a scared Naruto and a smiling Ayame humming at the cash register counting money. He just shakes his head and doesn't ask any questions, just hands Naruto his ramen. However, Ayame notices something. Naruto, where is your necklace you always have on? I took it off so I don't lose it during training. It's the only thing I have to remind me of Samui-chan, so I just take it off and place it in a storage scroll for safekeeping. He says while eating. They chat some more until Naruto realizes he only has 15 minutes to get to the training ground. He pays and hugs Ayame goodbye before leaving to head back. On his way he realizes he is being followed, so he takes to the alleys and loses his pursuer, but keeps his sensor abilities sharp and can sense anything within 200 feet of him that is following him. He makes it to the training ground, sees Shisui standing there waiting for him. Good, now that you're back we have 6 hours left, so I want 30 laps around the training ground, but do not take your weights off. After that we will be sparing taijutsu only. I will be moving at mid-chunin speed to try and advance your Sharingan. Now get moving. Naruto says nothing but takes off running, and 1 hour later he is done with his laps and sees Shisui running towards him at mid-chunin speed, so he activated his Sharingan and prepares for the fight. He just manages to block the punch Shisui throws at him and throws a kick towards Shisui, who blocks as well. They break apart and settle into their fighting stance, Shisui in his interpreter stance and Naruto in his Kame stance. What follows next is just an all-out taijutsu fight that would make a certain green jumpsuit wearing Jonin would want to take Naruto on as a student. Despite Naruto not being used to moving at chunin speeds, his Sharingan makes it easier for him to follow. Every time Shisui would throw a punch or kick, he would block or dodge while striking at Shisui's opening, but it would be blocked by Shisui. Unknown to Naruto, Shisui is purposely leaving openings to gauge if Naruto would see them, and to his surprise he does see the openings and takes them, but what has him impressed is while Naruto strikes at his openings he is making sure to keep his guard up. However, as the fight progresses, Naruto does gain his second tomo in his right eye. However, he gets so into the fight that he is only focused on him, a Shisui sparing. Unknown to him, his Sharingan turns silver while keeping the tomo in his eyes, and he begins dodging Shisui's punches and kicked. Even better, Shisui sees this and knows he has to end it now before Naruto's body starts to strain itself too hard. So he shunsins behind him and gives him a chop to the neck, knocking him out. He picks him up and sits him under a tree to get some rest. He notices they still have about 2 hours left, so he waits to see if Naruto will wake up in time so he can teach him a jutsu that every Uchiha must know. To his surprise, Naruto wakes up only an hour late and realizes his bruises are gone. Must be the fox's healing ability, he thought. Naruto, come over here, it's time to teach you a new jutsu that you must know as an Uchiha. He gets a nod from Naruto and they head over to a giant pond located deeper into the training ground. So Shisui, what jutsu are you teaching me? He asks. Turn on your Sharingan and watch, he says. Naruto does as told as Shisui goes through the hand signs and says, Fire style. Fireball jutsu. He breathes out a huge fireball and Naruto can feel the heat coming from it. I can make it bigger, however that size I did is the size you need to be able to pass the test and become considered a true Uchiha. Now you have 45 minutes to practice this jutsu before I end training, and as you know I can't help you with this, you must do it on your own. he says, getting a nod in response. Naruto walks to the edge of the pond and begins to practice. He slowly goes through the hand signs and calls out. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. What comes out is what you would call pathetic if you can say a small stream that makes a barely recognizable fireball, but unlike Shisui's, Naruto's flames were blue due to his unusual fire affinity. Naruto was expecting to see Shisui laughing, however he had a straight face on and Naruto could see a small side of disappointment in his eyes. Naruto sees that he has gained a look of determination and does the jutsu again. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. This time the jutsu was not the right size, however it was close to half the size of Shisui's. Naruto, seeing this, gains a proud look on his face as he finds out the problem: he isn't using the right amount of chakra and isn't letting it build up properly. He practices a few more times before Shisui calls for an end of training. Naruto was able to get his fireball to half the size of Shisui's fireball and knows he needs maybe 2 more days of training this jutsu to get it down. Alright Naruto, that's it for the day. I have something to do tomorrow, so you have the day off, you can do whatever you want. He says, but pauses when he sees the evil gleam in Naruto's eye and knew what it meant. Somebody was getting pranked, which meant a headache for him and the Hokage. Despite Naruto being extremely mature for a 6-year-old, he still has his immature moments, which Shisui finds funny. I know that look, and please keep it to a minimum for me, that's all I ask. He says. All he gets is Naruto walking away giggling evilly, causing Shisui to inwardly cry at the problem Naruto is about to cause. Meanwhile, a certain old man who is relaxing reading his favorite orange book gets a shiver down his spine and narrows his eyes. Something tells me I'm gonna regret waking up tomorrow, he thought. Oh, how right he was. Next morning could be described as total chaos. All shops were covered in bright orange paint, feathers, and somehow filled with cats. And most, not all, of the Anbu has their gear turned pink with rainbows on it. The only shops that were not a wreck were the ones in the red light district and the Ichiraku ramen shop. So when Hiruzen woke up this morning, imagine how he felt when he opened the door to his office and seen stacks and stacks of paperwork as tall as him. If that wasn't enough, his secretary came in and told him the council has called an emergency meeting. All he could do is break down and cry. Why did Kami have to put him through this? It wasn't fair. His secretary can only shake her head at this in pity. Sometimes she feels sorry for him, but then realized all that paperwork had to go through her first, so it was all in her office before he came in. Council chambers. Hiruzen walks in with a depressing storm cloud over his head, causing some of the shinobi council to snicker at this, and while some felt pity for him, with a sigh he very reluctantly starts the meeting. Okay, who wants to go first? He asks, already knowing why the meeting was called. A fat merchant stands up and speaks. Hokage-sama, this is an outrage. Somebody has broken into my bakery, put laxatives in my baking ingredients, and covered the shop in paint. Another stands up. Every single shop in the village minus the red light district and that ramen shop were hit. What are you gonna do about this? Who could have pulled something off like this overnight? Suddenly everybody cringed when a certain pink-haired merchant spoke up. I bet it was that damn child. You should have let us kill him when we had the chance. I demand he pays for his actions. This is unacceptable. How am I supposed to run my business with paint, feather, and cats everywhere in my store? She screeched, causing the head of the Inuzuka clan ears to bleed. Hiruzen just sighs and motions for his Anbu. Yes, Hokage-sama, said an eagle-masked Anbu. Please bring me Naruto Uzumaki, he says, and the Anbu nods and leaves. 20 minutes later he returns. I am sorry, Lord Hokage, but I can't seem to find him, the Anbu says. Hiruzen can only sigh and dismiss the Anbu. But what gets everybody is that when the Anbu turns to leave, he has a "kick me" sign on his back. I'll go get him, I might know where he is. Hokage training ground. Here we find young Naruto meditating in a lotus position, thinking about how his latest prank went and how he can finish the fireball jutsu. When he feels his Jiji chakra signature enter the barrier, so he stands up and greets him. Hey Jiji, what are you doing here? I thought you were in the office right now. Hiruzen I can only twitch at this. No Naruto, I am not. I'm in the middle of a meeting with the council and I need you to come with me. He doesn't give Naruto time to respond and just grabs him a shunshuns to the chambers. Council chambers. He and Naruto arrive and then shouting starts, however Hiruzen shuts them up with key so he can speak. Now Naruto, the civilian council is charging you with destroying property and breaching security throughout the entire village last night as well as attacking an Anbu officer. How do you plead? Not guilty, Naruto replies with a straight face. Liar, we know it was you. Who did this. Just because you have no parents and nobody to love you doesn't mean you can destroy our stuff, you little shit. I want him dead. The same pink-haired lady screeches again, causing everyone but Naruto to cringe, who wasn't even paying attention. He was too busy thinking about what kind of ramen he would eat later. Mebuki, please stop yelling. You've already caused the Inuzuka clan head ears to bleed any louder and you may kill her due to scrambling her brain, and that can get you executed. Now as for Naruto's charges, the death penalty isn't even needed. If anything, he would have to pay a fine for the damages and do community service since he is a minor. He explains. Now Naruto, how do you respond to this? He gets no reply. He looks at Naruto, who is just staring off into space, and snaps his fingers in his face, getting his attention. Did you say something? Causing everyone to sweat drop and wonder if he met Kakashi before, while a gray gravity-defying haired shinobi sneezed. I asked how do you respond to what Mebuki said. Naruto, not hearing what she said, simply says. Do you have any evidence that it was me? Well, does anybody have any evidence or proof that it was him? Hiruzen asks. Well, no, but it was him, we know it was, said one merchant that refused Naruto's service when he entered his shop. Wait, so you mean to tell me that the entire village was pranked overnight? He gets a nod from Hiruzen. So you all blame me, a 6-year-old, for doing all this? I mean, seriously, I'm 6, how could I possibly do all this overnight? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know you all don't like me, but man, this is low even for you guys. He says with a fake hurt expression, but nobody can tell it was fake, not even the shinobi and elders could tell. Well, since nobody has any evidence that Naruto did it, the case is dismissed. Hiruzen says, secretly wondering how Naruto did it. What, Hiruzen, this is an outrage, you know he did it. This boy is nothing but trouble. Yelled Kaharu. Hey saggy tits, I didn't know you would be here, how are you doing? What's up, one-eyed pedophile and cool old man? He says, getting 2 out of the 3 elders to bristle in anger, while the Inuzuka clan head lost it and started howling with laughter. That is too damn funny. She says while banging the table, getting snickers from the Yamanaka, Nara and Akamichi clan heads, while the Hyuga and Uchiha clan heads have their normal blank faces on. Can I go now, old man? I'm hungry. Naruto said. He gets a nod from the Hokage and walks out, but if you looked you could see that he had a smug look on his face, knowing he got away with it. Later we find Naruto at the Hokage's training ground practicing his fireball jutsu. It's been 2 hours since his meeting with the council. After a quick stop at Ichiraku's, he only stayed for 30 minutes and ate 13 bowls. He came to train his taijutsu and his ninjutsu. He wanted to perfect the fireball and felt he was close. So here he is after an hour and 15 minutes of trying. Naruto feels like this time he has it. He takes a deep breath and exhales and starts going through the hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu. Out comes a huge blue fireball 3 times the size of the one Shisui showed him. He looked at it and was proud that he mastered it faster than he thought. He was cut off by the sound of hands clapping. He turns around and sees Shisui with a proud smile on his face. Good job on the fireball, Naruto, you are officially worthy of wearing the Uchiha symbol now. So other than that, I know I said you had the day off, however now I'll start working on maturing your Sharingan. He says. Shisui, you mentioned maturing the Sharingan, but is there a level above the 3-tomo Sharingan? Naruto asks, causing Shisui to freeze. Should I tell him about the Mangekyo? I don't want him to try and gain just for the power and drive him crazy. He looks at Naruto and sees him playing with some foxes that usually hang around the training ground. He smiles at how pure-hearted Naruto is despite everything he has been through. He decides to tell him about the Mangekyo Sharingan. Naruto, come here. Naruto walks over with the pack of foxes he was playing with and sits down while they lay down next to him while the smallest climbs in his lap. Okay, you asked if there is a level above the 3 Tomo Sharingan and the answer is yes, there is. He activates his Sharingan, but what shocks Naruto next is his 3 Tomos spin and morph into a 4-sided shuriken pattern in both eyes. This is called the Mangekyo Sharingan, the 4th stage of the Sharingan. To unlock these eyes you must see your best friend or somebody extremely close to you die. The rush of emotions triggering something in the brain causes a surge of chakra to go into your eyes, thus causing the Mangekyo to activate. But these eyes come with a price. The more you use them, the light in your eyes deteriorates, causing the person to go crazy and eventually they go blind. However, there is a way to avoid blindness. You must replace your eyes with a family member of yours to retain eternal light. However, this information is not known by anyone but me, and I am trusting you to keep this information to yourself. Not even the Hokage knows this. Can you keep this a secret for me? He deactivated his Sharingan and got a yes in return from Naruto. The sound of metal clanging against each other can be heard throughout the Hokage's secret training ground. If you look close, you can see Shisui and Naruto fighting with taijutsu as well as using kunai and shuriken. It's been 3 months since Naruto mastered the fireball jutsu and so far has only done the nature manipulation for fire and water. However, he doesn't know any water ninjutsu yet. For fire, Shisui taught Naruto the fireball jutsu, fire dragon jutsu and phoenix flower jutsu. Originally, Shisui wanted Naruto to be a mid to high genin when he reached the academy, but at the rate Naruto was growing faster than he thought, at this rate Naruto would be high chunin by the time the academy starts. His taijutsu, due to the constant sparring, is at low mid chunin level with his Sharingan and high genin to low chunin without it. Speaking of his Sharingan, the 7-year-old finally matured his Sharingan when 3 rogue Chunin tried attacking him while he was out in the forest during a morning run before meeting Shisui. He was on his last lap when he sensed them. They came at him from different directions. He had no choice to use his Sharingan. He was doing good, however he just ran 49 laps, so he was tired. Just as he was about to pass out, he was saved by Shisui, who knocked them out before turning them in. However, the biggest leap for Naruto was his Fuinjutsu. He went from level 4 up to level 7. He could now create barriers, blood seals and chakra suppression seals. He hasn't talked to the Kyuubi, however he understood why the fox didn't want to talk. It was waiting for Naruto to become worthy enough to know his name. However, what Naruto didn't know, he was closer than he thought. His genjutsu would never work without his Sharingan due to how dense the Kyuubi chakra made it. However, he could detect and break up to high B rank genjutsu and higher rank with his Sharingan. He was broken out of his thoughts when Shisui landed a punch to his gut, knocking the wind out of him. Good spar, Naruto. Now we have 1 year left and I will teach you some Sharingan genjutsu and wind manipulation. I don't have any lightning or water jutsus in my arsenal, however I'm sure your month we left you some water ninjutsu in that scroll of hers. Now another thing we will work on is your hand speed and work on cutting down the amount of hand signs you would need for a jutsu. Now, do you have any questions? Shisui says. I do have a question, but it isn't about the training. He says. Okay, ask away. What's going on with the Uchiha clan? Why do they all seem so tense and on edge? I've noticed they've isolated themselves even further from the village by not allowing any non-Uchiha clan members in. And the other night I heard 2 of them talking about some kind of plan that would take place next year. So what's going on? And don't bother lying to me, I'll be able to tell. Shisui was inwardly cursing his luck for his nephew being so observant. With a sigh, he decided to tell Naruto the truth. After the Kyuubi attack, the Uchiha clan was blamed for the attack after some people, ninja and civilians, claimed to see a Sharingan pattern its eyes during the attack, and we weren't on the front lines the entire fight. We were told they needed us to help secure civilians after and injured to safety and keep watch. Shortly after the attack, two of the elders, I am sure you can guess who, had the Uchiha clan relocated to the outskirts of the village, claiming it would be for better security of the village. However, we were the only clan moved around. All this happened before Hiruzen officially retook the Hokage position, so he couldn't do anything about it since it happens in private while Minato was alive, so since it during his reign he would be the only one to cancel that order. However, he is dead now. Years later, the village continued to ostracize the Uchiha clan and they have gotten tired of it, so me and Itachi have been undercover trying out the plot. However, with what you just told me, I can only think of one thing they would result in doing, and that is a coup d'etat, but that would just cause a civil war and possibly start the Fourth Shinobi War, and the world cannot handle another war. Shisui explained. Naruto took all of this in shock, that the Uchiha would really go as far as starting a civil war to get the respect they want and to clear their name. I think you should tell Gigi what we just found out, but leave me out of it. I won't tell anybody about this because I know there are spies in the village, from the one-eyed pedophile and his emotionless booty tag Anbu. He probably plays with it while they sleep. He says, getting a sweat drop from Shisui. Seriously, he's only 7 and he already knows about that kind of stuff, he thought. However, Naruto had a point, he did need to tell the Hokage about this. Alright Naruto, you're dismissed for the day. We start the rest of your training tomorrow, he says as he shunshuns to the Hokage's office, leaving Naruto by himself. He seriously needs to teach me that, he said to himself. He said as he walked off, if he would have turned around he would have seen the group of foxes that usually play with him disappear in a cloud of smoke, as well as a lizard-looking creature with wings disappearing a cloud of smoke as well. Hokage's office. Shisui arrived in the Hokage's office, but to his shock and luck both Hiruzen and Itachi were in there. Good, you're both here. I think I made a major breakthrough in our mission, Itachi. As soon as he said that, the Hokage put his hand up and dismissed his Anbu. He let out a chakra pulse looking for any intruders from root and found none. Then he put up a privacy seal in his office and let Shisui speak. Okay, the only thing that I've been able to come up with is that the Uchiha clan are planning a coup d'etat, he said, getting a shocked look from both Hiruzen and Itachi. How did you come up with that idea, Shisui? It doesn't make sense. The Uchiha clan isn't that big and are outnumbered in the shinobi side by a ratio of 25-1. How would they possibly plan a coup with such low numbers when luck clearly isn't on their side? Itachi says. However, Shisui instantly replies. Think about it, Itachi. The Uchiha clan have grown tired of how the village and people are treating them. What better way for a power hungry that thinks with their fighting instead of their actual brain? A coup d'etat is the perfect plan to overthrow a village that treats them like shit. You are the most level-headed Uchiha and a Sharingan prodigy, second to none other than Madara Uchiha himself, yet your eyes are not good enough to see what's right in front of you. You know I'm right in this. The Uchiha clan cannot simply see the forest for the trees. They believe that a coup would work when actually it would fail, resulting in the near extinction of the Uchiha clan unless they have something big planned, maybe outside help from another village or help inside from some ninja or ninja clans, he says. Hiruzen meanwhile has a serious thought on his face, then decides to speak up. Shisui, although I am not disregarding your assumption, you've given me some good points to look at, but I need actual proof. If they are planning a coup d'etat, then I will try to sort this out peacefully. We cannot afford to have a civil war break out, he replies. Getting a nod from Shisui, he looks at Itachi, who has a thoughtful look on his face. Itachi and Shisui, I want you both to try and figure out what they are planning and report anything you find to me. If they are planning a coup, I want to know when and how they will pull it off. Dismissed. He drops the seal and Itachi vanishes while Shisui stays behind. So Shisui, how is your rank mission? I assume he has made progress. Hiruzen days. Yes, he has made a lot of progress. It's a good thing you had me train him before the academy. They would have wasted his talents. I did, however, lie to Itachi about him being the most level-headed Uchiha and being the best Sharingan user, only behind Madara. Those titles belong to Naruto, but he doesn't train with his Sharingan all the time. Sometimes I fight him with my Sharingan activated while he leaves his off. If I had to gauge his skill level, one would say without his Sharingan he is high Genin to just under mid Chunin taijutsu wise, however with it I would say mid to high Chunin, however his speed I would day high Chunin. Ninjutsu only since he only knows jutsu for only one of his chakra natures, however I have a feeling that he will be an all-around shinobi with skills in every area. I do have one request. I suggest introducing him to Anko. I believe she would do great knowing Kiyomi had a child and is around. You know how much Kiyomi helped her after she returned to the village and how much of a mother figure she was to her. I believe I can bring her to the Hokage private training ground and have them spar. I'm sure his stance will make her realize who his mother is. I think they would do well for each other. I can key in her chakra signature to give her a place where she can train besides the Forest of Death since nobody can spy on her. Also I believe in a few years Naruto will be able to remove her curse mark. The Hokage is shocked by this. What makes you think he will be able to remove it even when Jiraiya can't and he is a seal master? He asks. Well, according to Naruto, Jiraiya must be a seal master at suppressing things and creating barriers. However, Naruto says that if Jiraiya wasn't specifically studying Juinjutsu and how to remove them, then he will never be able to remove it. Which makes me wonder what he was doing while he was supposedly checking her seal to see if he could remove it. Anyway, can I bring her to meet Naruto tomorrow? Hiruzen thinks but finally agrees to this, however tells Shisui to tell her what she discovers tomorrow is a S-ranked secret. Shisui nods and vanished to the dango stand where he sees Anko sitting with Kurenai, another purple-haired kunoichi named Yugao and another one with black hair and red marks on her face. This was Hana Inuzuka, the current heir to the Inuzuka clan. Hello ladies. He greets them. Kurenai, Yugao and Hana gives him a regular greeting. Anko on the other hand. Hey Shisu-chan, what's up? Are you still looking for that date from me? Sorry, but I'm currently looking at somebody else to break my barriers down and ravish me like a wild stallion. She says, getting a shake of the head from Shisui and a blush from Kurenai, Yugao and Hana. No, I'm not here for that. I'm here to tell you I need you to meet me at the Hokage's training ground tomorrow. He says. Shisui, I told you I'm not interested, she says with anger in her voice, thinking he is just looking for a quickie with the snake whore. Anko, he says seriously, shocking her since he never speaks to her like that. Meet me at the Hokage training ground tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Please. He says. She nods her head and he vanishes. What do you think he wants? Anko asks Yugao. Yay, from as long as we knew him he was never serious with you like that. Says Kurenai. I think you should go and not treat this like the dates you say you'll go on and stand them up. Says Hana. I was going regardless and those men only wanted one thing from me, to get in the snake whore pants. I don't want that. I want a man that wants to actually get to know me. Have a future with me, raise a family. I may dress like this, but it's to get a certain man's attention. If he gives me a chance and we work out, I will stop wearing such revealing clothing, you know. No more mini skirts that show off my panties or see-through shirts with only a little padding that covers just my nipples, you know. She says. Her friends nod at this. They know Anko only dresses like that for attention, but what only they know, she is as pure as the day she was born, never even kissed a guy. She has problems trusting men after Orochimaru betrayed her. However, she has her eyes a certain shinobi with a scar across his nose, but she rarely sees him in the village. What she doesn't know is that her crush is in the Anbu due to her going missing, so he doesn't even know she's back in the village. I'm gonna get going, guys. Apparently I have to be up early tomorrow even though it was supposed to be my day off. They all hug her and she leaves to go home for the night. Next morning Naruto arrives at the training ground at 5:30 a.m. to get so light early training in. He begins with some stretches, push-up, sit-ups and finally some laps around the training ground, 30 with his weights on and 30 with his weights off. After that it was 7 a.m. so he decided to start making a resistance seal for his body that would make it harder to move around. He wanted to use gravity seals, however he was stopped by a note that says it would stunt the growth of somebody if they were not finished growing, so he figured he would just use it to weigh his opponents down. After creating the seal and applying it to a shadow clone, however, he got the memories from the clone about how the resistance seal felt like. He would have to ask Shisui about that later. So he creates another clone and has him draw the seal on his body, and it feels like he has a 30-pound body suit on. He looks the clock he brings with him and it shows 7:15 a.m. So for the next 45 minutes he is jogging around the training ground until he senses Shisui enter the barrier. However, he has the same purple-haired lady with the trench coat he sees walking around. "Okay Naruto, this is Anko. I brought her here to meet you and spar with her," Shisui says while Anko gets pissed. "You brought me here to spar with some gaki? Are you serious, Shisui? I don't have time for this, it's my day off." She turns to leave but feels somebody grab her shoulder. It's Shisui. "Anko, just do it please, you'll understand why I brought you here," he says softly to her. She sighs and nods. "Alright gaki, let's just get this over with," she says, getting into her taijutsu stance while Naruto drops into his kame stance, causing Anko to freeze and tears build up. "How do you know that stance?" she whispers. "How?" she yells. Before Naruto responds, Shisui beats him to it. He knows because it belongs to his mother Anko, he says, causing her to break down. "I'll leave you two alone. I'll let you two spend the day together. Naruto, you have the day off today. Spend it with Anko. You'll understand why," Shisui says and leaves them alone. Naruto walks to her and sits down and she stops crying but still has sniffles. "You knew my mother." He gets a nod from her. "What was she like?" "She was the nicest person I knew and took me in after a tragic incident happened. I was what you would call a prodigy during my years in the academy, so of course I caught the eye of a lot of people willing to train me. However, the one that wanted me the most was Orochimaru. He was one of the legendary Sannin who wouldn't want to train under him, so after I graduated the academy he took me under his wing and trained me. However, we went on a training trip and that's when things went horrible. I didn't know he was experimenting on humans and killing them. I didn't even know he was responsible for a lot of our jonin and civilians going missing, so during our training trip he trained me in poisons and medicine. However, the medicine was his way of covering up for his experiments and had a hidden section of his lab where he would take what I made and inject them into humans and none of them would survive. One day he made a breakthrough in cursed seals in his search for immortality, and since he ran out of guinea pigs he strapped me down and bit me on the neck, giving me the very first curse mark." She pulls down her trench coat and the left side of her shirt, showing him the curse seal on her shoulder. "I was branded and left alone to die. However, he came back a week later and I was still alive. He was surprised by that but was mad I wouldn't use the curse mark, so he changed it up and all it does is cause me pain. I was rescued by a squad of Anbu who were returning from a mission and brought me to the Hokage, who had to have me taken to T&I department, get everything he did out of me, but to their surprise my memories of all the experiments he did were wiped out by one of the Anbu who was a spy for Orochimaru and part of the Yamanaka clan, however didn't cover his steps and was executed. However, the village found out about me and treated me like shit. Ever since, because of the curse make, I became known as the snake whore, and I was ready to kill myself because all of the friends I had betrayed me and treated me like the rest of the village. That's when I met your mother, who took me in and placed me on her genin team with Kurenai and Yugao. She became like a mother to us, but me and her were the closest, and she tried to adopt me at one point, but the Uchiha clan head at the time found out and forbid it to spite your mother for not wanting to marry his son. He also banished marriage and relationships outside of the clan because she showed no interest in marrying somebody from the clan. There you have it, my story. I was close to being raised as your sister and I was robbed of that. I didn't even know she was pregnant with you. I guess she kept it a secret since I have a feeling your father isn't an Uchiha. So tell me about your life." He sighs and tells her everything from his life in the orphanage, the beatings they gave him, his first friend with the 2 buns in her hair and his best friend Samui meeting the Ichirakus, and then about the beating from the villagers and meeting Shisui and some of his training. "Anko, I know we don't know each other, but I wouldn't mind having you as my friend or sister." He gives her a hug as she starts crying again, saying thank you over and over again. After she gets done crying, she speaks. Naruto, with your training I can teach you a jutsu your mother taught me, but first, have you learned all the steps to fire manipulation and learned the fire dragon jutsu yet? He nods. Great, now watch me. She goes through 20 hand signs and calls out. Fire style. Dragon rain jutsu. What happens next leaves Naruto in shock, and she breathes out a huge flame in the air, but it doesn't go away, it stays there. Then large dragons made of begin to fall out onto the ground and explode on contact. Wow, Anko, nay, that was so cool, I need to learn that as well as the other jutsus she left behind. He says with stars in his eyes. Her heart flutters at him calling her that, but she smiles fondly at him and gives him a hug and kiss on the cheek. Don't worry Naru-chan, I'll teach you this and one more jutsu she made that requires water affinity like me. Do you have that as well? He nods and tells her his 4 affinities. She is shocked but gets over it. Okay, good, I can only help with your fire and water, those are the only 2 I have, but I'll teach you what I can for the next year. She says. Now this jutsu requires a high water affinity due to the fact that it's an offensive and defensive jutsu at the same time. She goes through 20 hand seals. Water style. Octo shield jutsu. What happens is she is surrounded by a large body of water acting as a shield, however there are 8 tentacle whips of water at the top of the shield. She moves her hand and one of them moves towards a small tree, knocking it over. Whoa, cool. But do you really need to use all 20 hand signs? Shisui told me I can perform jutsu with less hand signs if I practice. You must have known these jutsus for at least 10 years. How come you use all 20 hand signs still? I don't get it. He says. Oh my dear little Naru-chan, I can do the dragon rain jutsu with 3 hand signs, however I need 5 for the octo shield jutsu. I should be able to get the fire down to 1, but the water will stay at 5 since my fire is the strongest of the 2 affinities. Okay, that makes sense I guess. Now let's eat before we start training. We have about 8 hours left until my training is done for the day. He says as he unseals 2 bento boxes with chicken teriyaki, rice and vegetables and 2 bottles of fruit juice. Why do you have 2 bento boxes and bottles of juice? She asks. Well, one of them was for Shisui but he left, so I figured you can have it. He says they began eating and Anko is shocked at how good it is and compliments him. As they eat they talk about dreams for the future and whatnot, and she can't help but smile at his dream. After they finish she stands up and stretches.